Hey there, night dwellers. Welcome back to Nightmare Frequency. Before we descend into tonight's chilling tale, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below, letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, get cozy, and prepare yourself for another journey into the unknown.
It started with a dream. At least I thought it was a dream. The first night in my new apartment, I woke to the sensation of someone standing by my bed. Not moving, not breathing, just there. I couldn't see anything, just the vague outline of a figure, darker than the darkness around it. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, eyes wide open, a scream caught in my throat. The figure leaned closer. I could feel the cold radiating off it. The whisper came next. Not in my ears, in my head. A voice I didn't recognize. Male, deep, wet like it had crawled up from a well. You brought me back. And then I could move. I sat up, gasping, flipping on the lamp beside the bed. No one was there. I chalked it up to sleep paralysis, stress from the move, new job, new place. My apartment was a converted attic space in an old Victorian house on the edge of town. The kind with floorboards that creak on their own and doors that don't quite shut right. It was cheap, and I didn't have many options. The landlord, an older man named Mr. Kearney, had been eager to fill the place. Too eager. Looking back, I should have asked why. The next night, the dreams got worse. I was in the attic, my attic, but it was different. Rotten wood, wallpaper peeling in strips like skin. And there was something in the corner. A bundle of bones and black hair, twitching, groaning. It raised its head slowly. No face, just a hole where a face should have been. I screamed, and it screamed back, the sound tearing into my skull like a rusty nail. I woke up sobbing, clutching my arms to my chest. That's when I saw the scratches. 3 thin, blood-crusted lines down the inside of my left arm, like fingernails. My nails were short and bitten to the quick. I couldn't have done it to myself. The third night, I didn't sleep. I sat up with all the lights on, trying to read, but the words kept swimming. The air in the room was heavy, dense like fog. At 3:08 a.m. on the dot, the lights flickered, then went out. My phone died in my hand. All the sound was sucked out of the room, like the silence after an explosion. And then came the voice again. You opened the door. It was closer this time. I stood, my heart slamming in my chest, and turned to face the hallway. The darkness was absolute. I could hear something moving, a slow dragging sound, like something wet being pulled across wood. I grabbed the flashlight from my drawer and clicked it on. The beam trembled in my hands. The hallway was empty, but the attic door, the small crawl space above the hallway closet, was open. I had never opened it. The next morning, I called Mr. Kearney. He brushed it off, said he hadn't been up there in years, but I could hear something in his voice. Hesitation, maybe guilt. I pushed. Did someone die here? There was a long pause. Then he hung up. That night, I nailed the attic door shut. The hammering seemed to stir something. From the moment I drove in the last nail, the house felt angry, like I'd insulted it. Windows rattled, faucets turned on by themselves. I started hearing whispering behind the walls, soft and constant, like a heartbeat. I recorded it once, played it back. All I heard was my name, over and over, whispered by dozens of voices. I stopped recording after that. I started researching the property, town records, newspaper archives, anything I could find. What I uncovered made my blood run cold. In 1913, a woman named Eleanor Crow lived in the house. She was a medium, known for holding seances for grieving families after the war. According to the article, she got mixed up in something darker, a ritual she called the Reach, where she'd open a passage for spirits to cross into our world. One night, something else came through. Neighbors heard the screaming. When they found her, Eleanor was dead. Her body twisted, eyes gone, mouth torn open, as if something had clawed its way out from inside her. The attic space had been boarded up ever since. Until now. Until me. I couldn't sleep anymore. Couldn't eat. I was slipping, seeing shadows move when nothing should move. I quit my job. My friends stopped calling. I started to wonder if I was losing my mind, if the house was in my head. Then came the night I woke up outside. Not outside the apartment. Outside the house. Naked. Covered in mud. Standing in the backyard looking up at the attic window. There was someone in it. Not a shadow, not a trick of light. A person, tall, thin, white-eyed, watching me. I don't remember going back inside. I only remember waking up the next morning with my hands stained black as if I dipped them in tar. I should have left then, packed a bag and never looked back. But something had its claws in me. The longer I stayed, the more I needed to stay. The house whispered promises in the dark. It said I could fix it, that I could send it back, that it wouldn't hurt me if I helped. And I believed it. I started dreaming in another language, writing symbols I didn't understand. My notebooks filled with scrawls and circles and bleeding eyes. I'd wake up with bruises shaped like hands around my neck. My mirror cracked without being touched. I didn't even recognize my reflection anymore. Still I stayed, until the final night. It was storming. The wind howled like an animal outside. I lit every candle I could find, surrounded myself in a circle of salt, desperate for anything that might help. I pulled out the journal I'd found tucked in a hidden crawl space, a leather-bound thing that had once belonged to Eleanor Crow. It held the ritual, the return. It required blood, mine, and something else, something called a name key, the true name of the entity, and I knew it. The name had been whispered to me for weeks, in dreams, in mirrors, in the space between heartbeats. I carved the name into the attic floor deep, so it bled wood shavings like wounds. I chanted the words, ancient syllables that seared my tongue. The air turned black around me, the candles flickered blue, the shadows screamed, and he appeared, Alzeth. Not a ghost, not a demon, something older, something wrong, all bone and teeth and void. His presence crushed the room like a fist. My nose bled, my ears rang. He hated me, but I had power now. I had his name. I screamed it at him, over and over, my voice raw and breaking, and he writhed. I could feel him being pulled back to wherever he came from. The floor cracked, the air splintered. A hole opened beneath him, and he shrieked as he was dragged into it, his claws raking the wood, tearing gouges that bled black. And then, silence. He was gone. I collapsed, bleeding and sobbing, shaking so hard I thought I'd never stop. The air cleared. The house sighed. The pressure lifted, like someone had finally opened a window after 100 years. But it wasn't over. Not really. I moved out the next day, left everything behind. I live 3 states away now in a sterile apartment with bright lights and no attic. But some nights just past 3:08 a.m., the lights flicker, and I swear I hear him whisper, "You said my name."
Story number 2.
I remember the last time I saw my brother. He was standing at the edge of the woods behind our childhood home, barefoot, skin pale as milk, his eyes reflecting the moonlight like a cat's. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He just stared at me, lips parted like he wanted to say something. But my brother had been dead for 6 years. His name was Mark, and he vanished during a winter camping trip in Vermont. No one ever found his body, just blood in the snow and shredded pieces of his coat near the tree line. The police said it was likely an animal attack. My parents never recovered. We buried an empty coffin. I tried to move on. I really did. Then the letter came. A plain white envelope in my mailbox, no stamp, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper written in my brother's handwriting. "I'm cold. Please come get me. Behind the old church." It was signed. My hands shook so badly I dropped the letter. I tried to tell myself it was a cruel prank, some messed up joke. But deep down I knew it the same way you know when someone is watching you in the dark. There was only one old church he could have meant. Abandoned decades ago, way out past the edge of the woods where the tree trunks grow too close together and even animals don't like to go. I should have ignored it, but I couldn't. I packed a flashlight, a knife, and a flask of bourbon. The sun was already setting when I reached the tree line. I hesitated at the edge, heart pounding, before stepping in. The woods were wrong. They were too quiet. Not even the wind stirred the branches. My breath misted in the cold air, but it didn't rise. It just hung there, frozen in place. I walked for over an hour, following nothing but instinct and a growing sense of dread curling in my stomach. Then I found it, the church, a black silhouette in the clearing, half buried in snow. The steeple had collapsed. The door was barely hanging on its hinges. It looked like no one had been there in 100 years. But someone had. There were footprints, bare footprints in the snow leading inside. I followed. The air inside was colder than outside, like stepping into a freezer. My flashlight flickered as I scanned the room, rotten pews, mold-eaten hymnals. At the far end, where the altar should have been, there was a hole in the floor. A staircase descended into darkness, narrow and steep. And the smell, wet earth, rotting meat, something else, something sweet like spoiled sugar. I almost turned back. Then I heard him. "Danny, my name," whispered from the dark. "Danny, I'm down here. Please." It was Mark's voice. I descended. The stairs groaned under my weight, and the air grew thicker with every step. At the bottom was a tunnel. The walls were damp stone, lined with mold. Roots hung from the ceiling like hair. I followed the sound of his voice deeper and deeper, until the light from the entrance was long gone. That's when the flashlight died. I froze, my breath loud in the dark, the silence stretching out like elastic about to snap. Then, movement. Something scraped across the floor behind me. I spun around, knife drawn, blind in the black. "Danny," the voice rasped. Only now it didn't sound like Mark. It was warped, hollow, like someone was wearing his voice. I started backing away. That's when the thing stepped into what little light I had from my phone. It looked like my brother. Same face, same eyes, but stretched. Wrong. Like something had copied him from a memory and forgotten the details. His skin rippled like fabric in the breeze. His mouth opened, wider than it should have, revealing rows of teeth too sharp, too many. "You left me?" it said. I turned and ran. I don't remember how I found the stairs. I just remember the thing chasing me, footsteps slapping against stone, that awful voice crying after me like a child. I was so cold, Danny. Come with me. I burst through the church doors and sprinted into the trees. I didn't stop until I reached my car, lungs burning, clothes soaked in sweat. I drove home in silence, the trees pressing in on either side like they wanted to grab me and drag me back. I burned the letter that night, but it didn't end there. Since that night, I've gotten 3 more letters, all in Mark's handwriting, each one with the same message. "I'm cold. Come get me. I'm waiting." The last one had something new, a photograph. It was a picture of me sleeping in my bed, taken from the foot of it, and behind me, in the doorway, a shadow, tall, thin, smiling. I don't sleep anymore. I keep the lights on. I moved to the city, far from woods or churches, but I still hear footsteps at night, scratching at the door, and sometimes the voice, right in my ear. I remember where you sleep now.
Story number 3.
The first time I heard the knocking, it came from inside the walls. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, like something trying to be heard without being discovered. It was 2:43 a.m. I remember that because I just glanced at the microwave clock on my way to get water. The house was silent, dark, the kind of dark that presses against your eyes. I froze, my hand halfway to the faucet. Then came the knocks again. Knock, knock, knock. They came from behind the kitchen wall where the pantry met the old support beams. At first, I thought it was just pipes or the house settling. This place was built in 1890, full of charm and creaks. But the knocks kept coming, not random, rhythmic, intentional. I stood there for a full minute, heart beating in my throat, before finally whispering, "Hello?" Silence. Then, faintly, so faintly I thought I'd imagined it, a whisper came through the wall. "Let me out." I didn't sleep that night. This all started after I moved into my aunt's house in Maine. She'd passed suddenly. A stroke, they said, though the coroner's report listed something vague and unsettling. Extreme physiological trauma. The kind you might see in someone who died of sheer terror. My mother didn't want anything to do with the property, so I inherited it. It was beautiful, in a haunted kind of way. 3 stories, old pine floors, heavy doors with glass knobs. But there was a feeling here, a tightness in the air, like the walls were holding their breath. After that first night, the knocks became a pattern. Always at 2:43 a.m., always 3 knocks. They moved. Sometimes from the kitchen, sometimes behind the stairs, sometimes beneath the floorboards. I tried ignoring them. I tried sleeping with headphones, white noise, everything. Nothing worked. Then came the night I followed them. The knocks led me to the basement. I didn't even remember walking down the stairs. I just found myself at the bottom, flashlight in hand, the air cold and thick like I'd stepped underwater. The knocking was behind the old stone wall near the boiler. I tapped it. Hollow. Curiosity is a cruel thing. It whispers to you, just like the thing in the walls whispered to me. I fetched a hammer. It didn't take long to break through. Behind the wall wasn't insulation or wiring. It was another room. Small. Claustrophobic. Covered in red handprints, some too small to belong to an adult. and in the center of the room was a wooden chair. Strapped to it was a skeleton. It had been there a long time, decades, judging by the decay. The bones were twisted, wrists bent backward as if it had died still trying to escape. The jaw was broken wide open as though it had screamed for years, and carved into the wall behind it, in ragged letters, "Do not let him out." I stumbled back, heart jackhammering, bile rising in my throat. I didn't remember running upstairs, but I remember the door slamming behind me, and I remember the knocking stopped after that. But the scratching began, every night, from inside the walls, and the voice changed. No longer pleading, now it laughed. That next week, I started seeing things, shadows that didn't belong to anything, my reflection turning to look at me when I wasn't moving. Once, I walked past the hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of something standing behind me, tall, hunched, featureless. Then it was gone. I called a priest. He came with holy water, prayers, all the usual. The moment he stepped inside, he froze, said the air felt wrong. He walked the house slowly, murmuring under his breath until he got to the basement. He didn't go in. He stared at the door for nearly 10 minutes, shaking. Then he turned to me and said, "You've already opened the box. I can't help you. No one can." He left. I haven't seen him since. That night the thing came out of the walls. It didn't knock this time. It stepped. I heard its feet dragging across the wood upstairs. The ceiling creaked as it moved room to room. I locked myself in the bathroom, huddled in the tub, blade in one hand, flashlight in the other. Hours passed. Then something knocked on the bathroom door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, and then a whisper. "I'm out." The handle turned, slowly, deliberately, clicking back and forth. I screamed. And then it stopped. I haven't seen it, not directly, but I feel it, watching me, standing just behind doors, peeking from the attic hatch, crawling beneath the floor while I sleep. I don't know what it is, but I know this. It was never supposed to be let out. I moved, burned the house to the ground, watched it smolder, felt the heat on my face like a baptism. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake at exactly 2:43 a.m., and in the silence, somewhere in the walls of whatever place I'm in next, knock, knock, knock.
Story number 4.
When I was 12, my family moved into a house that had been empty for almost 50 years. It stood at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by trees that leaned in too close, like they were trying to listen. The house had belonged to my great-grandfather, who, according to my father, went missing sometime in the 1970s. No one ever found a body, just an overturned rocking chair and a broken clock, stopped at 3:33 a.m. The house had been passed down, ignored, almost forgotten, until my father inherited it. He called it a fresh start. I called it something else. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. Cold, heavy. Not just temperature, but something deeper, like the house itself was holding a breath it would never release. My room was upstairs, small, dusty, with a circular window that looked out over the woods. I remember standing there that first night, watching the trees sway even though there was no wind. The moon was high and bright. Everything looked silver and dead. That's when I saw her, a girl standing at the edge of the woods, in a white dress, hair hanging limp over her face, barefoot, still as stone. She looked up and smiled. I screamed. My parents ran in, but when they looked outside, she was gone. They told me it was my imagination, that the stress of moving was messing with my head. But she came back, every night, always at 3:33 a.m. At first, she stayed at the tree line, then closer. One night I woke up to find her standing on the lawn. Another night, she was at the porch steps. Then, she was at my window. She never moved like a person. It was always like a cut in a film. There, then closer, without motion. Just closer. I tried telling my parents. They told me to stop watching horror movies, that I was scaring my little sister. So I stopped talking about her. I started locking my bedroom door, pushing furniture in front of the window, covering it with blankets. But the moment the clock hit 3:33, I would feel her. Inside. The air would change, go thin and sharp, and I'd hear soft footsteps on the carpet like someone pacing in circles around my bed. She never touched me, not then, but I knew she was waiting. Then my sister started sleepwalking. I found her in the hallway one night, staring at the attic door. She was whispering, over and over, "She's in the ceiling. She's hungry." I carried her back to bed. She didn't remember a thing in the morning. A few nights later, my parents started fighting. Loud, vicious arguments that came out of nowhere. My dad punched a hole in the wall. My mom smashed a mirror. I found strange drawings in my sister's sketchbook, pages of a girl with no eyes, her mouth stitched shut, blood dripping from her hair. In every picture, she was getting closer to the house. One night, I made the mistake of following the sound. It was 3:33 a.m. I had started recording the hour every night on a cheap camcorder I'd found in the attic. I'd set it on the dresser, lens facing the room. But this time, I heard something new. Scratching. Not from outside. Not from the floorboards. From the ceiling. I looked up. The attic door was ajar. The ladder was down. I don't remember making the choice. I just remember climbing, one shaking hand at a time, into the darkness above my room. The attic was colder than the rest of the house, the kind of cold that bites your bones. My flashlight flickered as I moved. Dust floated in the air like ash, and in the far corner, something moved. I froze. Then I heard her whisper, "You see me now." The girl stepped forward, only it wasn't a girl anymore. Her skin was gray, bloated, stitched along the joints like a doll. Her mouth was hanging open, split ear to ear, the stitching long torn. Her eyes were gone, just empty sockets oozing black. Her feet didn't touch the floor. She was still smiling. I fell down the ladder, hit the floor hard. The attic door slammed shut above me, so violently that dust exploded from the ceiling. The next morning, I checked the camcorder. My bed was empty in the footage. Then, at exactly 3:33, something crawled down from the attic. Slowly, one pale hand at a time. She moved like a spider, limbs bending the wrong way. She crawled across the ceiling and just watched the bed. She stayed there until the sun came up. That was the last night I slept in that house. I told my parents everything, begged them to leave. They didn't believe me. But 2 nights later, the fire started. They said it was electrical. An old house, bad wiring. They never found my sister's body. I live in an apartment now, no attic, no woods. I haven't seen her again, but sometimes I wake up at exactly 3:33 a.m. and the ceiling creaks.
Story number 5.
I never believed in curses until I found the box buried beneath my grandfather's floorboards. He died in the dead of winter, alone, in the same farmhouse where he'd been born. I hadn't seen him in years, not since he warned me never to visit his home after dark. He was a stern, paranoid man, always muttering about shadows and the thing in the walls. My parents said dementia, but now I'm not so sure. We went to clean out the place after the funeral. It was old, creaky, filled with dust and time. Every step felt like walking into something that didn't want you there. Then I found the hatch. It was under the rug in the hallway, nailed shut, sealed with thick wax. A symbol had been scratched into the wood, a circle with 7 jagged points. My cousin laughed it off, said it was just some weird superstition, but I felt sick just looking at it. I pried it open anyway. Beneath the hatch was a narrow crawl space, barely big enough to squeeze into. A strange smell drifted up, damp wood, rust, and something sweet, like rotten fruit. My flashlight flickered as I slid inside. At the very back of the space, sitting alone in the dirt, was a small black box, wooden, carved, bound with thin copper wire that pulsed faintly in the beam of my light. There was no lock, only a latch. I should have left it alone, should have closed the hatch and walked away, but I didn't. When I opened the box, I expected, jewels, a diary, nothing. What I found was worse. Inside was a human tooth, long, sharp, yellowed with age, and wrapped around it, a scrap of leathery dark skin. I dropped it immediately, heart hammering. But it was too late. Something sighed in the darkness, and the house exhaled. From that night forward, everything changed. At first, it was little things. Objects moved. The clock stopped at 3:17 a.m. I'd wake up to find all the lights on, even though I'd turned them off. I started hearing whispers in the walls, too soft to understand but full of intent. Then came the footsteps. They started in the attic, slow, heavy, like someone dragging one leg behind them, always after midnight, always ending at my bedroom door. I stopped sleeping. The others didn't notice, or they pretended not to. They'd complain about headaches, say they felt watched, but no one saw it like I did. Until the 4th night. That's when my cousin disappeared. She'd gone to the basement to fetch some old records, never came back. We found the door open, the light off, and at the bottom of the stairs, the box, closed. But now the latch was gone. We searched for hours, called the police. They chalked it up to a tragic accident. Maybe she ran away, they said. Maybe she hit her head in the woods. But I knew better, because something came back with me. I moved out 2 weeks later, tried to pretend it never happened, burned the box, moved states, got therapy, but the thing didn't stay behind. I see it sometimes, in reflections, in places it shouldn't fit. It wears my cousin's face now, but wrong, too wide, too still, like a puppet mimicking her features. It stands just out of reach, watching, waiting, and every night at 3:17, the clocks stop. Every single night. 1 week ago, I woke to find a tooth on my pillow. Not mine. It was yellow, sharp, familiar. Then the whisper came, right in my ear. You opened the box. Now you are the box. And I swear, sometimes I feel something moving inside me, slithering just under the skin, like I'm hollow now, like I'm not me anymore. I don't sleep. I don't eat. My reflection no longer moves when I do. I write this only to warn you. If you ever find a black box bound in copper, buried beneath an old house, don't open it, because whatever's inside doesn't want to stay there.
Story number 6.
It started with the photo. A simple Polaroid, left on my doorstep, face down, no note. I live alone in a third-floor apartment with a secure entry. No one should have been able to leave anything there without me hearing it. The photo showed my bedroom, taken from inside the closet. The image was grainy, the lighting dim, but I could clearly make out my bed, the blanket half tossed back the way I'd left it that morning. The closet door, though, was slightly ajar, and in the dark behind it, something was visible. A figure, tall, wrong. Its outline didn't make sense. A crooked head, 2 long arms, hands that dragged on the floor. I called the police, of course. They swept the apartment, found nothing. No signs of forced entry, nothing on the cameras. Must be a prank, they said. Maybe a friend with a spare key. I changed the locks, but the photos kept coming. Each night a new one, each time closer. One showed me sleeping. The next, me almost waking up, eyes half open, blurred. The third showed me staring directly at the camera, except I had no memory of waking up at all. I stopped sleeping, started locking myself in the bathroom at night with the lights on, door barricaded. Didn't matter. More photos. One of me brushing my teeth, one of me crying in the shower. Then something new. A photo of the inside of my fridge. Another of the living room from a high angle, like the ceiling. One night I smashed every smoke detector in the apartment, thinking one had been replaced with a hidden camera. But no matter how hard I searched, I never found anything. Then the photos changed. They started showing places I hadn't been yet. A subway tunnel. A dark hallway with peeling floral wallpaper. A concrete room with no doors or windows, just a single chair facing the wall. The last photo I got before things truly unraveled was taped to my bathroom mirror. It showed me, dead, face down in the tub, blood around my head, eyes wide, mouth open. I screamed, packed a bag, left that apartment behind and never went back. But the photos followed me. Even here in the motel an hour away, they find me. Tonight, I woke up to find one taped to the window. It's dark, but I can still make out what's in it. It's my current motel room. It was taken from the ceiling corner. The angle shows me lying in bed. But what's worse is that I'm not alone. There's something next to me, curled up beneath the blankets. Its body is misshapen, spindly. Its head is too large, pressed against my chest like a child. Its hand is on my neck. And its face is my face. Eyes glassy, grinning. Behind the photo, someone scribbled a message. You look better this way. I don't know what it wants. I don't know how it keeps finding me. But I think it's trying to replace me. Or maybe it already has. If I vanish, if you find this message, please, for the love of whatever you believe in, do not look at any photos you didn't take. And never, ever open your closet door at night.
Story number 7.
I was working the night shift at a rural hospital when the phone in room 209 rang. That wouldn't have been strange, except room 209 had been empty for weeks. It was under renovation. The door locked from the outside, furniture covered in white plastic sheets, no power, no phone service hooked up, and yet the call came through at exactly 1:44 a.m. I was at the nurse's station, sipping bad coffee, trying to stay awake when the phone on the desk lit up with an incoming call. Room 209, the screen read. At first, I thought someone had made a mistake in the system. Maybe maintenance? A tech glitch? Then I heard the voice. It was a woman. She whispered, "He's in the walls." Just like that. No greeting, no emotion. I froze. Who is this? A pause. Then in the same flat whisper, "He's in the walls. He's under the floors. He watches while you sleep. I slammed the phone down. Security and I went to room 209. We unlocked the door, stepped into the cold, empty darkness. No one there. Sheets undisturbed. Furniture untouched. And the phone unplugged. No dial tone. No power. We chalked it up to a prank. Maybe crossed wires. But that night I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been in there with us. I even thought I heard breathing. The next night it happened again. 1:44 a.m. Ring ring. Room 209. This time I didn't answer. But the phone rang 13 times before stopping. Then my personal cell buzzed. Unknown number. I picked it up. Heart pounding. That same voice whispered, "He's in your room now." I dropped the phone. Ran out into the hallway, heart racing, every instinct screaming, "Run." I didn't go back until sunrise. Over the next week, things escalated. The call came every night, always at 1:44, always from room 209. Phones ringing when they weren't even connected. Lights flickering in perfect patterns. 3 long flickers, 4 short, over and over. Once, a coworker said she saw someone standing in the hallway mirror. A tall, bald man with skin like wax and no mouth. He vanished when she turned around. Another nurse quit after she woke up from a nap in the break room and found fingerprints on the inside of her eyelids. I stopped sleeping altogether. And then one night, I answered the call again. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted it to stop. 1:44 a.m. I picked up. The voice said, "He's behind you." I didn't turn around. Not even when I heard something dragging across the floor. Not even when I felt a hand wrap around the back of my neck. Ice cold, heavy, unnatural. I passed out. When I woke, it was morning, but something had changed. There were bruises on my neck, in the shape of long fingers, and I couldn't see my reflection anymore. Mirrors just don't show me. Not fully. I'm there, but not right. Slightly delayed, slightly off. Sometimes the me in the mirror smiles when I don't. I quit that job, moved to a city, a new apartment, top floor, no roommates. But last night, at 1:44 a.m., my cell phone rang. Just one word on the screen, 209. I didn't answer. But now, all the mirrors in my apartment are fogged from the inside. And on the bathroom wall, in smeared handprints, "I'm out."
Story number 8.
I used to love hiking. The quiet, the solitude, the feeling of being completely alone in the woods, far from the noise of the world. That's what drew me to the Black Hollow Trail, a little-known path deep in the northern mountains, one not listed on any park maps. I'd heard about it from an old hiking forum. People called it a hidden gem. They also said not to go alone. I went anyway. It started like any hike, crisp morning air, dirt crunching beneath my boots, birdsong in the trees. The trail was narrow, winding through thick pine forest. The deeper I went, the quieter it became. After an hour, even the birds stopped singing. That's when I found the cairns, small stacks of stones deliberately placed, dozens of them lining the trail like little gray sentinels, each one topped with a sharp black stone like an eye. I snapped a picture, thought they were creepy, but interesting. A mile later, my compass stopped working. Then my GPS died. No signal. I kept going, stupidly, trusting the trail. It narrowed, twisted, doubled back on itself. At some point, I realized I was walking in circles. Every time I thought I found a new path, I'd pass the same dead tree with the split trunk and the same pile of oddly placed stones. That's when I started to feel watched. I chalked it up to nerves. But then I heard the knocking. Not animals, not echoes. Deliberate, 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Then closer, knock, knock. I spun around, no one there. I started running. The forest blurred, trees too close, too silent. I saw movement, a tall figure in the distance, completely still, pale as bone, with arms too long. Every time I blinked, it was closer, and always behind me. I fell, skinned my hands, got back up. Somehow I burst into a clearing and found a cabin, a one-room structure, rotted and ancient, hidden behind a wall of thorns. The door was open. I ran inside and slammed it shut. Darkness. The cabin had no windows. Just a dirt floor and a stone hearth, and carvings on the walls, hundreds of them, stick figures with missing heads, circles with X's through them, words scratched deep into the wood. "Do not let it in." I turned around. There was a mirror on the far wall, strange, out of place, cracked but clean. In the reflection, I saw the door behind me slowly creak open. Nothing stood there, just trees, silence. But in the mirror, something stepped inside. It was me, but not me. Its eyes were black pits, its mouth stretched open in a silent scream. It walked like a puppet, jerking, twitching. It raised one hand and waved. I turned. No one there. I looked back at the mirror. Now the thing was right behind me in the reflection, its hands outstretched, fingertips inches from my neck. I spun, screamed, ran from the cabin. I don't remember how I got out, just that the forest eventually thinned and I stumbled into a ranger station near dusk, covered in dirt and blood. I told them I got lost. They didn't ask questions, probably assumed I was crazy. Since then, I've seen the cairns again, on the edge of my apartment building, in the alley behind my work. Last night, I found one on my kitchen counter, topped with a black stone, and this morning, I saw my reflection move before I did.
Story number 9.
I was 9 when my brother died. He drowned in the lake behind our house, even though he was the best swimmer I knew. Our parents never recovered. Neither did I. But what still haunts me is that he didn't drown alone. There was something in the water with him. They said it was an accident, that he must have gotten caught in the weeds, panicked. But I saw what really happened. I was watching from the shore that evening, the sun barely a sliver on the horizon. He waved at me before diving under, and he never came back up. I saw the water roil. I saw the ripples grow. Then I saw a hand, pale and thin, break the surface and pull him down. After the funeral, we moved. My parents couldn't bear to stay. I grew up, pushed it all down, told myself it was trauma, imagination, grief. But this year, I moved back. I inherited the house after my parents passed. It was old, creaky, untouched since we left. I should have sold it. I should have burned it. But something drew me back, like a hook under my skin, pulling me home. The lake was still there, still calm, still dark as ink. And on the first night, I dreamed of my brother. He stood at the edge of my bed, dripping wet, hair plastered to his face. His skin was bloated, blue, eyes glazed. He opened his mouth and water poured out onto the floor. Then he whispered, "It's still hungry." I woke up soaked. My bed was dry, but my clothes, my skin, my hair drenched in ice-cold water. I tried to brush it off. Sleepwalking. A hallucination. Maybe my mind playing cruel tricks. Until the second night, I heard the singing. A woman's voice. Soft, distant, echoing across the lake like it was traveling through fog. The melody was wrong, off-key, backward somehow. But I couldn't stop listening. I stood at the window for hours, unable to move. When I finally turned away, there were wet footprints on the floor leading from the door to my bed. I boarded up the house the next day, locked every window, burned sage, recited prayers I didn't believe in. Didn't matter. The singing got louder, the dreams more vivid. My brother came again, this time pulling at me, dragging my blankets off, whispering over and over, "She wants you now." You looked into the water. You heard her song. On the fourth night, I made the mistake of going down to the lake. I don't remember doing it. I just woke up knee-deep in the water, staring at the middle of the lake. The moon was bright enough to show the figures beneath the surface. Hands reaching up, faces just under the ripples, watching. And standing on the far shore was her. Tall, thin, skin like cracked porcelain. Hair black and slick, trailing like seaweed. Her mouth unhinged as she sang that backward lullaby. She raised one hand and pointed at me. I couldn't move for hours. I left the next morning. But it followed me. I started seeing puddles in places they shouldn't be, under my bed, on my office chair, in the passenger seat of my locked car. I started hearing the song in running faucets, in rainstorms, in the hum of the air conditioner. 3 nights ago, I woke up choking, drowning, my lungs full of water, though I'd gone to bed dry. I coughed up lake weeds. Last night, my brother stood at the end of my hallway and whispered, "It's your turn." And now the lights are flickering. The walls are damp. I hear footsteps sloshing through water, getting closer. If you ever hear the song, don't listen. If you see someone drowning, don't go in after them. And if you live near still water, never look at it during a full moon, because she sees you when you do, and she never lets you go.
Story number 10.
I used to work nights at an old roadside motel just off Highway 73. The Hollow Pines Inn. It wasn't much. 10 rooms, broken vending machines, a flickering neon sign that buzzed louder than a chainsaw. The kind of place where no one asked questions and most guests paid in cash. But there was one rule, drilled into me on my first shift by the night manager, Doris. Never book room 6. If someone asks, tell them it's under renovation. Don't go inside. Don't clean it. Don't even unlock it. Naturally, I asked why. She just stared at me and said, "That room checks people in on its own." I laughed. She didn't. Still, I followed the rule. For the first few weeks, nothing weird happened. Just your standard 2 a.m. drunks, truckers, and cheating couples. Until one night, room 6 lit up on the booking screen. No one had checked in. I stared at the monitor. There it was. Room 6, checked in. Name unknown. I looked at the keys. Room 6's was still hanging on the wall. I checked the log. No one had taken it. I told myself it was a glitch. Until the next night, when I saw someone walking toward room 6 on the exterior cameras. He came out of the woods. Pale, thin, wearing old-fashioned clothes soaked in mud. No car, no shoes. His face was blurry, like the lens couldn't focus on him. He stood at the door of room 6, and it opened, by itself. He walked in, the door shut. Then the light in the room turned on. My heart was pounding. I called Doris. She answered on the first ring and said, "Don't go near that room." I told her about the man, about the door, about the booking on the computer. She said, "That room's been sealed since 1978. The man who stayed there murdered his wife and child, carved symbols into the walls with their bones, and burned himself alive in the tub." I said, "Then how did someone just walk in?" She hung up. The next morning, the cleaning lady quit. Said she heard a child laughing in the hallway outside room 6 and saw someone crawl under the door. Crawl. On the security tape, the hallway outside room 6 always goes fuzzy around 2:44 a.m. Static, flickering, and then for one frame, a face pressed against the lens. Not a normal face. Too wide. No eyes. Just a grin from ear to ear and skin like burned leather. I stopped looking at the cameras after that. But last week, someone booked room 6 online. The system shouldn't have allowed that. It's not even listed. But the name field? Let me in! I canceled the booking. An hour later, someone knocked on the lobby door. A girl, maybe 7 years old, soaking wet, holding a broken motel room key. I asked where her parents were. She just said, "He's waiting in the tub. He said the water's warm now." She handed me the key, room 6. I told her to stay where she was and called the cops. They found no trace of her when they arrived. But room 6, its door was wide open. The room was bone dry, perfectly clean, except for the tub, which was filled to the brim with blood, and carved into the tile above it were the words, "You broke the rule." Now the front desk computer won't let me unlist room 6, every night at 2:44 a.m. It shows up as occupied by a new name. Last night it said, "Doris." She hasn't answered her phone since, and tonight the name is mine.